do we have any recognition? Oh, first of all, welcome to Finance Committee today. And I appreciate those who are here after a very short day yesterday.
Yeah.
So, Scott, do we have any recognitions today we need to go through?
Ma'am, I think, if we go into the backups, I'm not sure if or where Cammie posted the, Jared, didn't we post the update on USIMS?
Yes, we did.
Is that in the progress and achievements column?
It's under the request for data and information.
Okay. So no, I don't. Do we have anything, Cammie, in the achievements this month?
I don't think we do.
No, ma'am.
Thank you. I didn't see any there, so I appreciate that. So we've moved item number 2 off, and we will bring that back at another date when leadership puts it back. And we're going to move on to our 277, I believe it's 407. These are some amendments and some changes to the school fees. And I think, Tamara, are we turning this over to you?
It could be either of us. If you want, I could just give a brief reminder that we had. Is that all right, Board Member Belknap? I'll just give, and then we'll turn it over to Tamara. Just this last session, we had 2 bills that were passed, HB 80 and HB 391. So throughout the rule, you'll see quite a few kind of technical changes like the ones here that I'm showing, where the definitions of co-curricular and extracurricular activity were amended. And this is just to refer to those sections. But the biggest change that happened was they incorporated our definitions into statute. And so there were a couple of, again, technical changes, like in instructional equipment, instead of saying a secondary activity course or program, they just said in a secondary school. So there's quite a few, what I would say, technical changes. But Tamara Daly, who's the USB School Fees Project Lead, can speak more to the more substantive and kind of talk about the work that she and her team have been doing.
Yes, and thank you very much for having me today and allowing us to take this time. We really tried hard not to touch this rule, but as we were redoing some forms this year, we ran across some issues with the listing the forms and how the forms were, and so those are the technical or the changes, and with, as Angie said, with the definitions, and then just clarifying this on the statistical report that accomplishes or accompanies the report. We just wanted to show some clarity in those numbers that we're asking for. I'm happy to field any questions that anyone might have.
Tamara, Angie, can you scroll down to 598, I think it is? And just, Tamara, can you give me a little clarity on number 6 and number 7, what they actually mean?
Certainly. As we're going through the report and asked for the statistical information, we also, just this last May, we're trying to, in June, looking at the school fees that were approved by each board, where we have a new April 1 deadline that was changed to June. As we were going through the various board minutes and looking for those fee schedules that were approved, we found that some of them, they would only have like the first page or the second page. And so we were unsure by looking at those fee schedules if we had the complete schedule. So we thought, well, let's put just a count. It's just, to me, I'm a database person, so I like to have these controlled numbers or controlled counts. So that will allow us to see, okay, yeah, we've got the entire fee schedule, or if we had a piece of it. And also with the total dollar amount of all fees charged. Again, these are just as we're collecting the information and looking at the details, it helps us to see that we've got everything in front of us.
So Tamara, just following up, just for a little more clarity. So the total count of fees approved, so you're talking like they might tell you they have 21, but if you, when you're looking, you only see 10 on one page, you're going to be looking for the next page. Okay,
Exactly.
and on number 7, the total dollar amount of all fees charged, is that per school or per LEA?
Now, this will go back to the accounting of it, meaning you may have, 30 fees on your fee schedule. I'm not asking that you total up those 30 fees, but the total fees charged would be all the fees that were invoiced to the students, meaning all students probably get a locker fee or a registration fee, but only some would get some travel fees. These would be the total amount that was invoiced, if you would, to the students, or what the students owed for what they had registered for the activities and programs.
Okay, so someone might have 700, someone might have 300, someone might have 1,200. And so the district is adding up all the fees they collected and turning in one amount.
Yeah, it's not just collected, because as we talk about the cash basis versus accrual basis accounting, that this is what was invoiced. When all the students registered, they had their fee schedules, and so you add up all those amounts that is expected to be collected from the students.
So it was charged. Maybe they didn't collect it or they did something with it, but that's what was charged.
Right. So this is what's charged. So if you take out the fee waivers and there were what was not paid, that would be the amount collected. So this is the greater amount that includes both all the fee waivers and all the fees paid. And you might have some write-offs in there for some reason or another.
Board Member Belknap, may I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So one of the things that, and I apologize, Tammy, that I didn't ask you this before, but I think the question is this for the whole LEA or is it by school? So because does that make sense? If one school, yeah.
Yeah, it does. And I understand that we collect the statistical report based upon the LEA. So this would be for the LEA. So if they have multiple schools, they would be adding up from each school.
Okay.
So it makes sense then to add even on line 7 by the LEA.
True, yes.
So there's not a question because somebody asked if it's by student, by school, and so this way it would be, anyway, that was one of the pieces of feedback I had received. People wondered if it was the total amounts charged by school or by student, and they were thinking it was a description of the maximum amount that may be charged, and I didn't think that's what it was. So
no, this, and I probably need to clarify just a little bit because we are aware that some districts will charge what they call district fees or an LEA, but this would be a combination of the district fees and the school fees. Again, this is what is expected to be collected from the students by when they do the registration, all students and everything programs that they have registered for. And the difference between what they collect and what's charged is largely going to be the fee waivers. There might be some other nominal amounts, but so it's basically we have the amount charged or what is expected to be collected from all students at all schools and the fee waiver amount. And then the difference is the amount collected or the cash they receive.
I don't know if that's more clarification. It might not be. So I take it or leave it. I just wondered if this adds or not.
I think it will add clarity to those who have actually almost two separate fee schedules, one for the LEA and one for each school. So that would add clarity for that group.
Scott, did you have a question? Your hand is up. I just didn't.
Yeah, so this sounds, Tamara, help me with this. This sounds like an audit procedure type. I mean, are we trying to, is it less of an impact if you do it by LEA than it is by the schools, or, you know what I mean?
Again, we're looking that we collect. I seem to be. Okay, it looks like we collect these 6 or these numbers on on the questionnaire for the certificates of compliance. So these are very high level type of control numbers that quickly allow me to see do we have all the information? This amount, total of fees charged, would also be collected in the financial reports of the LEA as a local funding, school fees. But we just opened up those 4 accounts for. So I think you're right. It's just I don't think it's really an audit number. I think more of it as a control number, so that I can know if I've got all the information I need.
Okay, is this something that we can talk with the work group on?
Oh yeah, certainly.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Committee members, do you have any questions or concerns or comments on this rule 407? So I would actually then be looking for a motion.
And Board Member Melnap, just to clarify, if you like this language in green, you would need to make an amendment to include it.
Would anyone like to make a motion? Okay, Angie, pull up the motion for the committee action.
I can make the motion. Let's see.
Thank you. Just don't forget the amendment, Michelle, if you're good with it.
Okay. The committee approves, I move that the committee approve R277-407 draft 1 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. Did I do that right?
Is there any discussion to that motion?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, I heard everybody. So that's kind of fun. We don't have to put check marks. Did you get that all, Cammie?
Outstanding.
Okay, let's go on to number 4. This is R277113. We're working on draft 2. This is the LEA fiscal auditing policies that we've been working on for quite a while. So I think, I don't know if Debbie's going to show these or who, Angie.
So I'll just give a little recap. You'll remember that last month, the Finance Committee discussed draft 1 and asked for some additional consideration and work to be done. Since that time, Tamara Daly, Debbie Davis, and I worked on this draft 2, which is before you and on the screen. So you can see the red language was draft 1, the blue language is draft 2. And that these are the only changes in the whole rule. In addition, Tammy also included some background. I was going to try and hurry and pull that up. I apologize. Hopefully it's not making anybody sick as I move between different screens, but here you go. You can see Tamara Daly, along with Debbie Davis, worked on providing some additional clarification on this language. So that's the background. I don't know, Board Member Belknap, if you'd like Tamara Daly or Debbie Davis to speak more to this, but that's what I have to share.
One of the things that was in the committee action was to take this to the UASBO, which was going to be the very next Monday. And I'm interested in what their thoughts were and if you have some to share from that group.
Yes, Board Member Belknap, I was able to present along with Scott and his team at that committee the next Monday. And we got some feedback, but as hopefully I've addressed those in this document. We recognize that, first of all, I want to emphasize that we're trying to just ensure some reliability, consistency in the data with these changes that 113 has brought, lots of changes a couple months ago, and then there's this clarification that we're bringing back here today, just regarding the school fees. And then we want to make sure that we're ensuring that there's compliance with the laws and rules, and that there's accurate data. Now, in the document, the accounting for the school fees, we thanks to Debbie and I were able to collaborate on this quite heavily, as we wanted to recognize that there will be challenges to adapting this or making these changes in their accounting systems. Number one, the systems themselves, can they handle it? Number two, do we have enough people, right people at the school and personnel? And and it's going to make a change in how largely a lot of them are doing their current budgets and so forth related to school fees, because the waivers have never been part of the accounting system, and we're trying to bring it on the books so we have some consistency and we can easily look at it. And this is new, the modified accrual, and so there are some technical questions. And I had like 3 or 4 different emails I was able to look at from concerns from BAs, and that's why we created this document that you see here, the accounting for school fees, in order to kind of address those concerns. How do we look at the school fees? School fees are not like a golf fee, or you'd walk into a store and buy something. They're a little bit different because of the expectations, and there's some explanations given within this document here about what has been done historically and why this need to move to something that's more, what we're calling on the books. And so I can happy to answer some specifics if anyone would like to at this time.
Committee members, do you have any questions on this? That document that they had sent out that's in their backup was very helpful to me personally. Contra revenue, accrue, what really were those things? So if you have any questions on any of those, board members?
I don't see any hands raised.
I have a quick question.
Oh.
On the accounting, how many processes are involved with the accounting for school fees for the LEAs?
Well, I think that when you talk about those processes, we have some, the accounting processes would be once the registration is going and they've got that, they know how much fees what we just discussed, how they're going to invoice or charge everyone in their school fees, or what that expected payment. And the second part to that is the waivers. How much do we need to have in the waivers, and how much that as we grant those to the students, and which waiver, which fees they are. But in doing that, then in a couple of years, we add on another additional step that's kind of requiring that we get this information up front and on the books, is that you've got to distribute the waivers. That a school is not burdened overly with the waivers. So and you'll have to spread that amongst the different, schools within the LEA. And so that's a key point. And then there's another point coming down the road in another year, is school fees themselves cannot exceed the cost of providing the activity or program, or you can't charge a larger fee to some students to cover the cost of other students. So there's some changes that were phased in House Bill 250 that we kind of need to get the accounting set up right, so we can react and have those numbers to do the right thing in compliance down the road here.
Okay, so it sounds like to be compliant, there are quite a few steps, correct?
Yeah, there are.
And is there any way to minimize any of these steps so that it doesn't become a deterrent for our LEAs to be able to process these properly?
I think that there's, I think that the idea is, and I'm an old accountant. I've been an accountant for lots of years, and I really like the idea that you set it up, do it right, and then you don't have to come and try to fix your problems or find things later that are difficult to find. I know the schools for a long time, and as I've got out and worked with them and talked with them and on the different systems they have, Accounting is something that takes time and it takes effort to do. But once you got it set up and it's working well, you got the processes there, the procedures there, the policy there, it should actually be a better process overall and save, time and effort down the road.
Okay, thank you. I just had heard from a couple of constituents that they were concerned about this number of steps, and I understand where you're coming from as well, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much for that clarity.
Sean, I'm going to follow up on that, but that's probably going to take a question for Scott. Scott, are we building this this ability to pull this up in our USIMs so they don't have to create separate accounts to get this information up to the state?
What we're building in USIMS is the capability to, real time pull their general ledgers up. I think what Board Member Newell's getting at is, and Tamara, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is we want this is seeking to get down to what's called the transactional level, right? So parent comes into a school, writes a check for the fees. The secretary doesn't necessarily enter that into a system per se that interfaces or is interoperable with the district or LEA system. There's a whole bunch of steps that have to be taken. They have to deposit it within 3 days, and then it has to be meted out, within the right, further down the road as we get the details on this with the work group. I think that's really what Board Member Newell's getting out. So no, USIMS is not.
Yeah.
What we were seeking was Representative Ballard's bill to help pay for all these, like Tamara made a great point. There's just, it is what it is. There's differences in depth, or I guess, or capability of systems between LEA. Some have, but a lot of times they're just not always connected down to the school level. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so as we have requested as a board that if there is any funding left, that we have asked for it to go to that project, correct? That's our number one ask.
Ma'am, we haven't established that yet. That's going to be established in the board meeting. We're going to really start establishing what I believe you're talking about when we have our board meeting prior to the special session. Is that what you're asking, or?
No, we asked for this several months ago, and it was actually Board Member Davis who, this is before the a special session ago, when we said if there's any funding left over, we want that money to go to this project, and it was Ballard's bill.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check. That might have been when I might have missed that meeting. I think so. Yeah, when I was gone.
You may have, Scott, but I think we need to go back and look at that because I think the board voted that.
I could, Member Belknap, I could give you my recollection of what happened.
Okay.
My recollection was that it was a request. You'll remember we went through 2%, 5%, 10%, kind of what happens if there were budget cuts. And then there was a motion at the end where Board Member Davis said, and I would like to request that we potentially find space in the 2, 5, or 10%, but then add in the $4 million one time to fund Representative Ballard's bill. So I think there were other conversations about if the board has discretionary funds that that might be a use or something that it could be used on. But I don't think there was ever a motion about the board's funding. It was all about prioritizing or making a recommendation to the legislature to fund that before that special session, which didn't happen. They didn't take that recommendation. So I think I agree with Scott. I don't think the board ever actually took a formal motion yet on the use of discretionary funds or the board's, USBE's budget to be used for that. But I think that, as Deputy Superintendent Jones mentioned, that is going to be an agenda item at some point where the board will talk about those, I believe.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yes, so Deborah just texted me and she recalls that too. Yeah, I think this was, I mean, not an excuse. It was while it's gone. So our intent is to make sure that prior to this next special session, because by then we'll have, and you can see it in the backups. We already have some funding identified that's, in your budget right now. And then of course, Deborah's going through the closeout process. So there'll be even more balances identified. So we'll run all that past you so that, as we go into the special session, we'll be able to, sort through and basically get the board to Andy or to Deputy Superintendent Stallings' point is to make sure that going into that next special session, we have all this lined up.
Thank you. That makes sense. I wanted to bring that up, but I so appreciate Board Member Newell's comment on this, that we can't multiply their efforts, and yet I also don't want to have a way that we drop the ball and waive these fees for these kids who can't pay them.
Can I go to position 27? Time for what? 27.
Oh, there we go. That was Chair Huntsman. Okay. Any other board members have any questions or comments on this? Okay, I do. When I was reading through this, it took me a little bit to figure out that what we need is to have the understanding and accrue the school fees. Keep the fee waivers also in the dugout so we know where they are, but use a contra revenue account to record this. Now, I know that some of the BAs were very concerned about that, and so the request has been made that we put that off until next school year starting July 1, 2021, and hopefully we will have the ability to help support them in that by then. Also, a problem, I don't think you need to say in the LEA's accounting system and then again in the LEA's accounting system. So I think Angie's highlighted this, that we'll remove in the LEA's accounting system in this one spot and not at the end. Is that correct, Angie?
Yes, I just wanted to check with Tamara if she agreed that we could get rid of this first one. So it would read, beginning with the fiscal year that begins on July 1, 2021, accrue school fees and fee waivers and use contra revenue accounts to record fee waivers in the LEA's accounting system. So, Tamara, did you? Go ahead.
I think that works fine. The wordsmithing is not my strong point, but the point is here that when we accrue school fees, and you have to use an accounting system to do an accrual, and then the fee waivers are used in the contra revenue accounts, and that's all recorded in the accounting system. So I believe that hits those 3 points.
Board members, do you have any other questions or concerns on 113?
Board Member Belknap, I inadvertently muted Chair Huntsman. So I'm going to unmute and see, hopefully he can hear me, and see if he would like to say anything because I muted him. So Chair Huntsman, are you there?
Yes, I'm good. I've been muted for some time, but I've been able to hear the dialogue, but I am good. I don't have anything to add.
Okay. And for some reason, I cannot move you up to our panelist list. So I will watch, but if you want to go ahead and mute yourself at this point, this time, then you.
Okay, I'm muted.
And just one reminder, Board Member Belknap, if you would like to adopt that motion or this amendment, what we could do is we could either start with the motion to approve, sorry, I had it right here, draft 2, and then you could do the amendment to include the purple language on line 410, or if somebody wanted to, I guess that could be the procedural way to go about it, if somebody wanted to make the original motion and then the purple language on 410 is the amendment.
Would anyone like to make that motion?
I would, but couldn't you put this as Mark? Can you hear me?
Yes.
can we just call it an additional draft and include the purple language?
Yes, or say draft 2 as amended. Yes.
Okay. So let me get my book here. So I'd like to make a motion to approve draft 2 as amended on first reading, that the committee approved draft 2 on as amended in the first reading and forward to the board. I'm trying to remember how all that language went. Yesterday made me kind of numb. Okay. I'd like to make a,
Oh, you're doing fine, Mark.
I think you have it, except that it's rule R277113, and that's the only thing you were
yes.
missing.
Yeah. So
Any,
this is R277.
113.
113, draft 2 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. Is that correctly stated?
correct. Any discussion to that motion?
Nope.
Nope.
Seeing none, everyone vote.
Aye.
Board Member
This is
Nielsen
Mark.
votes aye. Aye, this is Scott.
Alter is an aye.
Board Member Newell, aye.
Chair Huntsman, are you an aye?
Yes. Chair
Thank
Huntsman.
He did,
aye.
yes, he voted aye.
Yeah, aye.
Okay, thank you. Do you have that, Tammy? I'll assume you do unless you tell me differently.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Let's go on.
I think the next item is this request for data and information.
You're so far ahead of me, Aaron.
If you're muted or not, so I apologize.
And well, I just figured, since you just muted Chair Huntsman when you wanted, you just mute us anytime you want to. Okay, Scott.
Oh, I'm sure that's what she wants to.
Yeah, ma'am. So I'll turn it over to Jared. This is periodically we provide you with an assessment of where we're at with USIMS. I will say that, while we made progress in the educator licensing, we're going to go ahead and start kicking off the student component of this project. Jared and Chima and I talked recently, and I think he can go into it and let you know a little bit about his concerns on the educator component side of this. But Jared, if you just walk them through this real quick, please.
Yeah. So Jared Felt, USBE IT director. I'm actually gonna turn it over to Chuma. He has taken over, and he'll explain a little bit about that as the program manager on the USIMS project. So Chuma, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. How's everybody doing? All right. Hey, thank you guys. Hey, just
Chuma, introduce yourself real quick.
Hi, Chuma Uzo, assistant IT director, interim USIMS program manager. Real quick, we'll be going through these slides. I think you guys have the slide deck here. I think we can move to the quad chart. So we'll just move from this on. Program. Okay, perfect. Thank you guys. Quad chart is good for talking about the initiative status, issues, risk, mitigation. So right off the bat, on the status, we have the USIMS program manager. She's no longer with the program. She resigned for personal reasons. I want to thank her for her service and for getting the USIMS program off. As far as backfilling, I'm evaluating a backfill at this time. But right now, I'll be running it to keep the program going, and I'll look at the backfill for the future. Right off the bat, you'll see some challenges here with the development team assembled. You'll see speed and efficiency gaps and production shortfalls. I attribute those directly to team dynamics. A lot of the team that's been assembled was assembled days and weeks before the coronavirus. So these guys have been working remotely. So there's been some things that have been done in terms of team dynamics, team challenge discussion, development inspection, and other things like that to look at where they're at. The good news is we're an agile team, and they're running under Scrum. So Scrum's very forgiving. So as these guys self-organize and they come together as a team, their development velocity increases. This is an iterative development product. So it's not like a traditional waterfall project where we get all the requirements up front and go into development, and then 3.5 years later bring it out and go, hey, everybody, does it look like you think? We do have the focus working group, which is the folks that are working on the requirements for the educator management component. Those people are involved, and I brought them in recently so they can start seeing changes every 2 weeks. So I believe the keys for success with this team in terms of their challenges are for them to adopt this empirical process control, which consists of transparency. Inspection and adaptation, those are continuous and process improvement, or observe, orient, decide, act. If you're familiar with PUDA, and then employees art of the possible. So that's them just continuing to move. The biggest part of the empirical process control is transparency. And that's showing your customers, showing the people who you're working with, what you're working on, how it's going, if it's good, if it's bad, if it's ugly, if it's perfect, so they can see that. So that transparency component is you, the board, the superintendency, the functional advisory board, which consists of USB personnel, LEA personnel, and other community stakeholders. And then the focus working group, which is the group that's convened from the functional advisory board to focus on things like the educator management component that we're working on today. We've recently hired user interface, user experience expertise. That's somebody who's going to work on the look and feel of USIMS. They're working right now to interview people from the focus working group to work on that look and feel, so we can make sure that everybody's satisfied with the look and feel. And then I'm preparing requisitions for the hire of the student development team, as Mr. Jones was talking. If you look at if you remember our initial proposal, we had some overlaps where we were working on the teacher component and the student component at the same time. So the key here is to pull in that student team so they can start working on those student components and getting those student components running while this other team's working, and I'm ironing out what we're doing with that team. Get back in there. So again, I'll go back into those challenges that we have. Educator development team gaps. We talked about speed and efficiency and production shortfalls. What's been done to mitigate those, again, was the team challenge discussion, team development inspection, team building for those team dynamics to address those coronavirus related issues. In addition to that, we have requested from the superintendency to bring people into from 2 to 3 days per week so they can get together. So I'm working with that team on that to bring them in. I'm also looking at, if I need to, a team restructure. So the people that I'd be bringing in on the student side, I could bring some of those people in on the educator side and push some of those educator people onto the student team that we're building. And again, like I said, for transparency, to ensure there's complete visibility of what's being done, we've got the focus working group looking at what's being developed and pushed out every 2 weeks so they can see the iterative product development and how it's working there. Next slide. Any questions before the next slide? Okay. Next slide. Okay, so the next slide is on the budget. So we started off with this 22.9 mil. Right now, to year to date, we've expended 1.2 million. So right now we're looking at the 21 mil. This is current as of, I believe, July 31st. So this is where we're at. Next slide. And then these are charts here that you're familiar with. Just little pie graphs here that kind of detail which money that we've expended and burnt here. Any questions? I'll keep this body and the superintendency apprised of any challenges as they occur. So, or changes in our status as they occur through this and other means. Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
Chuma, I just, I appreciate this and that it seems like we're getting the same information like you had the the circular graphs, and then you also had the information in a bar graph, and I think it's helpful because for me, I'm kind of the circular one. I can see things better that way, so I appreciate that.
No problem. We'll ensure continuity for you, so there won't be any changes there. Thank you so much. Any other questions?
This is Mark. I've got a question for Chuma.
Yes.
Can I be heard?
Yes.
Oh, the question is there anything on our end? I know there's a lot of exciting stuff happening with new SAMs and everything on that IT side. But is there anything that we should be doing as a board to help expedite some of these successes that you guys are planning on having? I know you're having plenty along the way, but is there anything on our end that we should be doing more of, or we should be considering something different on budget? I'm just curious. I know a lot of people are excited to push the water to the end of the road here. So that is my question. And if not, if there is anything today, maybe in our next finance meeting, if there is, that you can bring that to our attention. So feel free to respond to my question. Sorry,
no problem.
I'm barely hearing here, and I appreciate your patience, but I'm not there. Thanks.
No problem. There's nothing at this time, but as I go on, if there is, I'll bring it to the body and request assistance from this body. Same with superintendency. I'll go directly to them for what we need. The only thing that we did need at this time was permission to come back to the building. We talked to superintendency. Mr. Jones worked on that. And so I'm working that with the staff right now, and I appreciate his help on that. But yeah, nothing at this time. But I'm sure in the future we'll be asking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chuma. Board members, do you have any questions for Chuma right now?
No, ma'am.
None. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott.
Hey, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. We really appreciate the update because this is a really large sum of money, and to have little chunks along the way, what we're doing is very helpful. So thank you. And your smile, let's be real. Come on, Chuma.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
He's been using teeth whitening.
No, I have not, Chair.
Oh, okay. That's the deal.
No, it's not. Don't be.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. All right. Then if we don't have anything else there, let's go on to number 6, discussion for our FY21 budget. Scott?
So yes, ma'am. If Angie, can you? I think Angie, you're still driving, right? Can you pull the backup? Hopefully that board budget's in there.
Yes, I can.
Like me too. I've been confusing my staff. So
which one would you like? Which one would you like?
let's see. No, yeah, the board report one, I think. Let's see. Let me see. Is Deborah on? Deborah, does this have the balances, the carry forward, not the carry forward, but the
board report does.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, Angie. Go back to the board report. This one? Deborah? Yes. Okay. So will you point them out to? So, ma'am, this goes to it was a good segue. From your question about the way ahead and prioritization of Ballard's, funding Ballard's bill or too. So there's some balances that we have in here. And as the 5 members of the committee, as Deborah points those out to you, this is going to become important as we move together into a board meeting prior to the legislative session. So Deborah, if you'll tell them where, these balances are from, I know there's like an MSP balance and things like that, right? So if you'll just let them know that real quick. I just wanted to take this opportunity to at least get the 5 of you oriented towards this. So when we get into the board meeting ahead of the special session, and then again, Deborah's getting closer and closer to, year-end close. And so there'll be some additional information on, carry forward balances, what we can and can't use them for. We'll be ready. We'll be ready to, I think it was Chair Huntsman yesterday that asked me, how much work have we been doing with the LFAs and are we coordinating? And, I really feel strongly we have. Deborah and the LEAs, the LFAs are, communicating all the time. We've got good, Chair Belknap, I sent you an email that really, lays out that Deborah and, the LFAs are talking about the programs that were repealed, from the last special session. And, we'll just make sure that all the board members know that, what's available. And then we can go from there. We can set good conditions for a very productive board meeting and a very productive special session. So, Deborah, if you'll just show them or let them know where those balances are, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. So, Angie, are you the one driving? If you could scroll up.
Yes.
I can't remember how many pages I have here.
Looks like 4.
So probably 3. Page 3.
Does that look right? I'm on 3.
It's not moving on mine.
Oh, I apologize. I had paused my screen and I didn't realize it. Is this the right one?
Okay, so this goes back to in FY20 when we went through the carry forward balance exercise, and they actually reduced our FY20 budget. At the end of the day, they reduced the budgets in FY20 and turned around and gave it back to us in FY21 as one-time funding. So it didn't come back to us the way it left. Oh, nope, there is one on here. Okay, so if you notice towards the bottom here, the third one from the top or from the bottom, boy, this is tiny writing. It says one-time discretionary for PAAA. Oh, that's better. So this comes from basically the office's budget, PAAA. In this line item, it includes our indirect cost pool, IT, financial operations, student support services, data and statistics. So that's what lands in this line item. The next one down is PKAA. These are our initiative. This is our initiative line item where we have Upstart, ProStart, the educator or the software licenses, any of those initiative programs. The next one I believe is PLAA. Is that correct? If you scroll down to the next page, sorry, the 885,000. Yep, PLAA. That's actually the MSP categorical line item. That is where all of the admin pieces for the MSP programs actually are. So they are separated from the MSP programs. And then you have the 2 MSP line items, the basic program PPAA for the 20 million and PQAA. Oh, and then we have PTAA, sorry. PTAA is where we have teaching and learning, assessment, and CTE. Those are where those programs live. When we make decisions on spending this money, they have to stay within the line item that they were appropriated. So we couldn't use funding in PAAA for teaching and learning in PTAA. So just kind of something to think about there.
Okay, Deborah, hold on. Scott has his hand up. Scott, need to say something?
Yes, ma'am. I was just going to jump in and, for those of you that were, part of the discussion in which we can't get into in here with executive session, this is why I wanted to kind of address this with Deborah. So, and she's spot on where money is at and what it can and can't be used for. For example, she just talked about the balances that are in the basic program of the MSP. So, all this is relative to future decision-making processes by the board as we get and move towards that special session and other situations or circumstances that are going on right now. So this is why I really felt like it would be a value add if all 5 of you could see, where we're at right now and where the money's at. And then Deborah makes an awesome and an excellent point. Is there, we're limited. We can't move money between line items. Now, Deborah, correct me if I'm wrong. If we need them to, though, we can get the legislature to do it, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is why we need to, slow as smooth as fast, and spend the time right here with the 5 of you, because we're going to be really prepared for the whole board, the board meeting leading into the special session. That's all I have to say, man. Thank you.
Okay, I have another question, Deborah, you said something interesting for me to think about. You said they swept the money and they gave it back, but it didn't come back in the same manner. So did some of our blue money turn red and our red money turn purple? Or did it still have restrictions on it?
No, so it left out of specific programs within the line item, but when it came back to us, it came back in the line item as a lump sum.
Okay, now that makes sense.
Okay. So one thing that I just wanted to, before we ever start obviously going through this process, one thing to consider is we still are going to have to think about potential revenue shortfalls in 21 and possibly 22. We don't know where this is going to go. One thing that we really want to look at is where do we actually close and what are our ending balances there. We want to focus on spending our carry forward first where we can. Of course, we'll be bringing spend plans forward from the programs and things like that. And then we can start looking at this funding here to deal with much bigger issues or concerns. Does that cover it, Scott? I'm not sure if there was something else you wanted me to cover.
I actually think that helps. And I actually really appreciate the comment that if the 5 of us can understand this, it really helps us moving in the process. So if any of our board members have questions, because if we don't understand this, then there's 5 of us who should understand this. So does anyone have any questions about the lines here and what's happening?
I'm sorry. Can you say that again, ma'am? I for some reason it keeps fading out.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm just wondering if any board members have any questions on this, because it's important that the 5 of us understand what is happening here, because it will help make the flow as we discuss this moving into the legislative sessions. It's much more smooth. Okay, so Scott, I know that this was listed as an action item, or Deborah, is there really, is there anything that needs to be actionable here today?
No, ma'am, I would say no. I mean, we did just put it as a placeholder, not knowing timing wise where we would be with the legislature, where we would be with, board member requests or things like that. The momentum is increasing though. Pretty soon we're going to be taking a lot of action. So with this money. And then, of course, you know, to Deborah's point, the carry forward balances from the end of fiscal year 20.
I've got a quick question, Laura.
Yes, Michelle.
So Scott, this will also be presented to the full board, correct? And then throughout this year, we'll be making changes to it, right?
Yes, ma'am. That's the intent. We wanted to orient the 5 of you to this today, and then, you know, subject to, you know, never, you know, presumptive, but subject to Chair Huntsman calling a board meeting before the next special session, right? Maybe a couple days before the next special session, we'll go through this with the board. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then this is our budget that we're trying to do for the whole year to present at the next legislative session, or is this just for the special session?
So, ma'am, the budget that you're looking at right here is a piece of your overall budget. This is the internal budget to the board. And in this internal budget are these balances that you know, were, to Deborah's point, were given back to us. So the focus, so you've already approved this budget, and you've already approved the balances. Now the next step, you know, again, in a board meeting ahead of the legislative session, is to maximize the use of these balances, you know, in conjunction with or cooperation with the legislature and in the interest of whatever your priorities are. So your budget is already set, you know, for state fiscal year 21. It's now these particular items that Deborah went through that we still have to make decisions on. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you. I just wanted a little bit more clarity on that. I understand that now. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Michelle. Deborah, do you have anything else? Or Scott?
No.
No, I don't. Unless, Deborah, did I answer board member Bolter's question right? I mean, is there anything you want to add to that or clarify?
No, I think you.
Okay. Okay, no, nothing else then, ma'am.
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Is that correct, Angie? Just want to make sure I didn't miss any, because
Yes,
I
it
am
does.
known to do
I'm
that.
just
So-
getting to the agenda. Yes.
Okay, I just want to again thank this committee, because I just so appreciate all your reading you do ahead of time, your advanced preparation in understanding the rules and concepts coming before us. So thank you to the also to those who, Angie, for running the meeting, and to Scott. I also appreciate the entire team. We have a meeting on Monday always, and they're all there and provide us with great information and support. So thank you. Have a nice weekend. And it's not 11 p.m. So that's a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. It is a good thing.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.